I'm going to demonstrate to you how to make yeast dough, and you guys have a recipe there. I want you to follow along with me. We're actually going to make this on Monday. All right. So I've done a few things. Yes, because I'm going to demonstrate how to roll it out tomorrow. All right. I've done a few things prior to videotaping this. I've washed my hands with hot soapy water. I have assembled the equipment and some of the groceries. But I have 2 medium-sized bowls. I have a glass measuring cup. This glass measuring cup, I've actually put warm water in there because I'm going to dissolve my yeast in there, and I want to take the chill off of that glass measuring cup. So there's warm water in there. I'll dump that out and then measure 1/4 of a cup when it comes time to dissolve the yeast. I've got a small saucepan, which is over on the stove. I have a leveler. I have wax paper. I have sifted some flour on there. I've got my dry measuring cups out, a small bowl, 2 forks, a scoop, measuring spoons, a sifter, and a wooden spoon. All right. Now if you look at the directions, it tells you to sift a large pile of flour on a piece of wax paper. To sift, you just put your flour in there, and it incorporates air into it. All right. I have measured 1½ cups of flour, even though it calls for 3½ cups. I'm only going to mix 1½ cups to begin with. Then I'll gradually add my other 2 cups. It says to scald your milk and then add your shortening. I have measured my milk in a glass measuring cup. I put it on a level surface, got eye level. And you don't have to follow me here with this, but I'm going to just bring this over and put it in a saucepan and let it start warming up. Now, I'm using the back burner. My pan handle needs to be turned inward. And to scald. To scald just means that it starts to steam and it starts to foam on the sides. You don't want it to boil. Right? When it gets closer to that time, I will have you come up and look at it, and I will videotape it as well so that you can see what does scalding mean, because that might be something you've not ever done before. Okay, so once that's scalded, I'm going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to add my 1/4 cup of Crisco, which I've already measured out. That's 4 tablespoons. And I'm going to let that melt. Once that's done, I'm going to put it in a medium-sized bowl and add my sugar and salt. I have my sugar, 4th cup sugar, already measured in here, and I have my 1 teaspoon of salt already measured in here. Now it talks about active dry yeast. We are going to have a package of active dry yeast. Now, this active dry yeast actually has a expiration date on it. And if you look here, it says December 2013. It's good until then. All right. This happens to be 1/4 of an ounce. All right. And that's what I need my scissors for, my kitchen shears, is I'm going to open this up. I'm not going to use it quite yet, but I will open it up so that I'm ready. All right. You can also buy your yeast in a jar. It's cheaper. If you do a lot of bread, this works out pretty good. And it tells you right on here that you use approximately 2 1/4 teaspoon. It equals 1/4 ounce. Right? So that is something that you can use as well. But you have to look for the expiration. See, this expires in October of 2013. I'm going to just check on my... You don't want your milk to burn, so I've only got this on like medium heat, like 6. Okay? And it's starting to get warm, but it's not there yet. So I'm just going to using my rubber scraper to get to the bottoms of it so it doesn't burn. It won't take too much longer before it's ready. And I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. So, again, just to recap, I've sifted my flour, I've measured 1½ cup, and I still need 2 cups, but not for a while. I'm scalding my milk. When my milk is scalded, I add what? Shortening, the Crisco, right? And I stir it until it's melted. I take it off the heat, all right? And then I put it in a medium-sized bowl. I add my sugar and salt. Sugar is the food for the yeast. Salt controls the action of the yeast. It actually slows it down a little bit, all right? When I dissolve my yeast, I have to make sure that that water isn't too hot, because hot temperatures kill yeast, and I have to make sure that it's not too cold because it won't activate it. Okay. That's not even warm enough yet. see steam on here quite yet. I'm going to keep it there. I have already put my egg in a bowl, and I have beaten it. And to beat it, you just use your fork and you beat it until the egg white and the egg yolk are together. Okay. Let's come over here and take a look. You guys can come up and around also, because that way you can see it. See how it's starting to get a little bubbles on the outside? You really don't see steam yet. But I'm going to just do this one more time because I don't want it to burn. And I don't want it to boil. Right? But stirring it distributes that heat. And it keeps it from burning on the bottom. See how it looks a little bubbly when I do that? See how it's foaming? Mm-hmm. I'm going to let it get a little bit foamier, but I don't want it to boil. And that's called scalding. Okay, see how it's forming really good on the edges there? All right. When I put my Crisco in there, I do not want to plop it down in there because this is warm. All right? So I am just going to take this off of the heat, and I'm going to very gently put it in there, and then I'm going to stir it until it's melted. And you can break it up if you want to make it a little bit faster. I'm going to take that off the heat because I don't want it to burn. Okay. And that won't take very long to melt. And once that's melted, then I'm going to put it in a medium-sized bowl, and I'm going to add my sugar and my salt. Sugar, again, is the food for the yeast, and salt controls the action of the yeast. It's starting to break up pretty good. I wouldn't want to add my yeast to this right away because it would be too hot. It would kill it. All right. By putting it in another bowl, that'll take some of the heat out of it. And adding my sugar and salt will take some of that heat out of it too. Now just a few more clumps there, and then it will be completely melted. That's melted. I'm going to stick it in this bowl. I'm going to use my rubber scraper just to make sure I get everything out of there. And I'm going to add my sugar and salt. And I'm just going to stir it. You can use your wooden spoon, you can use your rubber scraper if you want to, but you just want to stir it until it's dissolved. I mentioned that my liquid measuring cup had warm water in it just to take that chill off of the cup. I'm going to start running my tap water because it takes a little while for it to get hot, as you guys know. And it's about the temperature of very warm bath water is what you want it. All right. And I only want 1/4 of a cup of water. I'm going to let that run a little bit longer. This is melted. My sugar and salt is in there. I'm going to open my yeast. Once I get my 1/4 cup measure there, I'm going to dissolve it. Stir it with a fork till it's dissolved. It is 1/4 cup water. Eye level, and it's 1/4 of a cup, and I'm going to put my yeast in there. And I'm just going to stir it with my fork until it's dissolved. And that warm moisture activates the yeast. It has a distinct smell to it. Now, I don't particularly care for the smell when you first open it up, but like it's dissolved. Can you get that for me, Dylan? Okay, so my yeast is dissolved in my water here. It says to break an egg in a small bowl, beat it with a fork. I've done that, right? It's all beaten. I'm going to add 1½ cups of flour to my mixture here. And I have already measured out 1½ cups. It says just to add it gradually though, right? So I'm just going to gradually add this. And I'm going to mix it. You don't want it to be lumpy. And it will get lumpy at first because you're adding it to a warm water and it will swell a little bit. And that's 1 cup. Oops, that didn't want to come out. I very slowly did it. You can see it's getting a little bit thicker. Now I'm not adding all of my flour at one time. Alright, you're only going to add 1½ cups at first. I'm going to add my yeast and my egg to this once this is all combined. I'm going to use my rubber scraper. I'm going to add my yeast. And I'm going to add my egg. I'm going to stir it until it's really combined well. At first it doesn't want to combine, but it will. It kind of lays there on top at first. Once this is combined well, I'm going to add my 2 cups of flour, but I'm going to add it gradually. It is a rainy day today, so it may actually call for a little bit more flour. It's supposed to rain tomorrow too, so I may end up adding more flour than the recipe calls for. It never really gives you specific exact amounts of flour because of that. Alright? Okay, that looks like it's pretty smooth, doesn't it? And I'm going to gradually add my other 2 cups of flour. Now this is sifted. I want to be careful as I put this in there nice and gently. Alright? I just spoon it in until it's heaping, and then I level it off. And I'm going to add it gradually. This is a sticky dough. It's a soft dough, so it's going to be too sticky to knead right now. have you work in groups of 2 because you'll actually divide this dough once it's risen, and each of you will shape half of it into croissants. And you see how it's starting to get a little bit elastic? That gluten is starting to get a little bit developed. It's still very sticky. Okay, we need 1 more cup of flour. We'll do the same thing, spoon it in very lightly. Level it off. And a little bit, stir it. You see how it's getting a little more elastic, guys? It'll get a lot more elastic as you knead it. What do you think would happen if you added all of your 3½ cups of flour at one time? Yeah, it would be really hard to mix. Virtually impossible. Okay, now once I get this combined, I'm going to, it says to oil, you can actually use Pam and just spray your bowl. You want to spray your bowl before you put this in there because you don't want it to get, you don't want it to stick, right? Let's see, that's not wanting to, you got to work a little bit. And then, you know, as you're doing this on Monday, you may want to switch off because you might get a little tired. Unless you're strong like me. Okay. You can still see some particles of flour in there, but you don't want to see that. You want to be all mixed in real well. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now tomorrow, after you're done testing, I will demonstrate to you how to shape your croissants. That won't take very long. Right. I'm just going to take this, spray it so it doesn't stick, and I'm going to use my rubber scraper. I'm going to turn that out into this. And again, it's a soft dough. It's really sticky. I'm going to cover this with wax paper. And I'm going to spray my wax paper too because I don't want my wax paper to stick as this rises. It will double in size. And we're going to stick it in the refrigerator because we don't have enough time to work with it in one class period. If you had more time, you can leave it out and shape it once it doubled in size. Looks pretty simple, doesn't it? So I'm going to get a piece of wax paper. I'm going to spray my wax paper. Put it on top of that. I'm going to cover it with saran wrap. Now you will need to have a piece of tape with your name or with your kitchen color and period so that we know whose is whose tomorrow. But it will double in size and you'll be ready for shaping tomorrow. Okay. Any questions?